Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to give you some general thoughts on both the Venom films, that being Venom, which came out in 2018, as well as the sequel, Venom Let There Be Carnage, in anticipation of the third film in the trilogy, The Last Dance, coming out in October. Now, I've had an interesting relationship with these films, to a point, at least to me. I initially really liked the first Venom movie solidly well, and I still do. But when Let There Be Carnage came out, I was a little bit more lukewarm about it. It felt kind of rushed in terms with the Carnage character and sort of capping that maybe a little earlier. Just something being more kind of erratic about it. That didn't feel quite as paced out properly as the first. But I recently rewatched both films, and I'm really glad I did, with October coming around, because I gotta say, I really do enjoy both of these movies. Now, I've been a Venom fan for most of my life. I've always found him, he was both my favorite Spider-Man villain, and I remember when I was younger being fascinated by his more anti-hero and, solo series turns and such, Lethal Protector and everything. And I've always liked Tom Hardy as well. I don't always feel like he needs to do an accent in every, different accent in every movie, but he is definitely one of the more notable actors of this generation. And I've actually gotten fairly endeared to his Eddie Brock. And I know a lot of people have a problem with these movies just at the grassroots. Oh, he's supposed to be connected to Spider-Man. It's not Venom without Spider-Man. How could you make this without Spider-Man? Sure, it is Sony greed trying these movies. Hey, the first movie made over $850 million. So, for me, as much as I love Venom being a Spider-Man villain, I don't think everything about the character is necessarily rooted in Eddie Brock's rivalry with Spider-Man or his Venom's grudge with Spider-Man. I feel like the character's become special enough that he can kind of stand on its own outside of that. Now, people say, oh, the origins should still be tied to Spidey. I guess, but I think they came up with something that can still work well enough on its own, and I don't think it was all that hard to come up with, honestly. I don't necessarily have a problem with that part of it anymore. That being said, I would love to see Hardy's Venom be integrated into the MCU somehow, but we'll see what's all going on with that eventually. But yeah, overall, I still have a preference for the 2018 Venom. I just felt like it was again paced out better. I thought, I don't know, something really stuck out to me about the final fight in this one too, between him and Riot. On the bridge and near the ship and everything. I think that's a really overlooked comic book movie fight, honestly. I love the hell out of it. I really like the Stan Lee cameo at the end as well. And even that sequence with the SWAT unit coming after him, I think is a really cool action sequence too. And I just think Venom himself is actually pretty well executed in these movies. Sure, people can say he makes too many jokes, kind of too humor based. But I don't know. It's it's a little juvenile. You might not be in the mood for it here and there. But I think it works. It gels with the dynamic and the bond they play on with Eddie and Venom. And Venom himself, the design is perfect. The way he moves, the way he fights, I think is just dead on. And I even like the weight, they convey with when he runs around and everything. That's been really, really consistent. You can actually feel it. Okay, this is a big fucking thing. But yeah, so I think they've honestly nailed Venom for me. It's another, it's a lighter adaptation, but it still works and it still has, him biting off heads, etc. It is, they are PG-13. They should be R-rated movies, I agree. But it being R-rated doesn't necessarily make or break a film to me either. You can still tell what he's doing to people when he does it, so I don't think it's necessarily the be-all end-all that some do. And now in terms of, I already talked about preferring the first film, but I have come around to the second a bit more as well. I think Woody Harrelson is a perfect casting for Cletus Cassidy. I was thinking him or someone like Walton Goggins perhaps, but when he was introduced at the end of the first film, I thought, okay, that's gonna be fine. And of course, they adjusted his hair, which I think is for the best. Naomi Harris and Scott, I'm butchering her name right now, as Shriek, I thought was pretty good as well. It was a little bit shorter than the first movie. It's only like an hour 32 minutes. But for that runtime, I thought they developed their dynamic nice enough, fleshed out about as well as they really could have for that runtime. You know, with the flashbacks to when they were younger and everything, I thought it worked to kind of create like a good synergy between the characters. And they do probably stick out more as villains in this movie than Riot did in the first, considering Riot really just starts off as like this, you know, kind of a shitty, greedy executive, and then, you know, Riot takes the guy over and such. But that still worked enough for me in the first one, obviously. And Andy Serkis directed Let There Be Carnage, and you know, I don't really notice as much of a stamp of his on the movie. I don't know if it's just a case of, okay, he wants to try directing, so the studio kind of gave him the Venom sequel, you know, to just go for. But, you know, I think the chaotic nature was still felt. Again, there's kind of that energy and, you know, pacing to it that I think works well with the characters. So I didn't notice anything wrong with it necessarily, just nothing that, okay, I can see Andy Serkis adding like his own flavor to it. It just felt very much like the next movie. But so villain-wise, the second does stick out more. Again, I feel like they could have probably carried the Carnage thing over a bit into the third film, even if they were to do, you know, more than one villain and everything. But the way it ends is still satisfying enough. And they do kind of carry over the Michelle Williams, you know, love interest aspect, which I don't know if they're really doing as much in the third. You know, which is something that could be developed more. She feels like she could be kind of any sort of character, I suppose, but it does work as sort of like a, you know, thing to bounce off of. You know, do I think these are like, you know, top tier, you know, filmmaking? No, but I think they both very much succeed in what they've gone for. They're both very easy to watch films for me. I don't know what else to say. I think they're very easy to watch and very easy to enjoy. Both of these, as well as Morbius, these films more so, I don't really get the internet hate for. Both these films are far better than Morbius, but I don't think Morbius is the worst thing in the world either. Let that take all my credibility away if you would like. But so honestly, in conclusion, this movie version of Venom has honestly become kind of special to me in a way. You know, call me stupid for my own taste or what. But I've just really loved this portrayal, and again, I think Venom himself, when he's in full Venom mode, is perfect. I've gotten endeared to Eddie's version of Eddie, Tom Hardy's version of Eddie. So yeah, imagine how cool a fucking Deadpool and Venom movie would be. There you go. But again, I think the character's still awesome as Hall, even being PG-13. I think it still, you know, works within there as well as it can, and still cool as hell, man. But yeah, I enjoyed both of them. I'd rate the first Venom a B+, A-, somewhere in there. Let There Be Carnage, I think, maybe a notch lower, like B perhaps, but it could go up. I seem to like it a bit more with every watch. So yeah, and I guess think about both of these in retrospect, and what you're thinking from the Last Dance previews. I think it looks like it could be maybe the best. We'll see. But yeah, catch you guys next time. Peace.